Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Trade the Chain. It is Monday, April 5th, and thank you all for joining us. We're going to talk about some Bitcoin today, as we always do. There's some interesting technicals, some interesting data coming out on what it's doing and where it's going, as well as mining. And it's actually it's quite the shocker when we go to the visuals on this one. It's going to be cool. So stay with us. I have Monty and CJ, crypto analyst from marketrebellion.com. CJ, you have Ryan's job today.
Yeah, just a reminder that everything said today is not to be considered financial advice. This is all for entertainment and educational purposes only. So just keep that in mind while you're watching us today. Trade the Chain is also brought to you by Trade the Chain, an AI-driven sentiment dashboard with indicators and actionable alerts to help you beat the market. We have community members, or Trade the Chain, I should say, has community members all throughout the world now. And if we take a look at the dashboard today, unusual that we're getting some bearish sentiment on the hourly with such positive price action, but still pretty long-term bullish if we look at the coin screener here. And then moving on to marketrebellion.com/crypto. This is Monty and myself in our community at Market Rebellion. And with us, you get exclusive trade insights with entries, exits, and stop losses, access to our macro portfolio allocations, a pro charting platform, a trading education curriculum, and an elite community of traders all throughout the world, and much more. If you're serious about trading crypto, this is the service that gives you everything you need all in one place. You can start your first month trial for just $1 at marketrebellion.com/crypto. We have a mobile app as well for Apple users. So we appreciate that, guys. And with that being said, Alex, Monty, would you like to share anything before we get into the big boards here?
Happy Monday, everyone.
Happy Monday. Everybody loves Monday. Don't want people to forget, tomorrow we have Simon Yu, CEO and founder of StormX on tomorrow, as well as Pat Ackerman joining his first join into the StormX conversation on the episode. So it'll be interesting. If you want to get notified and not miss it, please hit the subscribe button. Of course, pound that like.
StormX made quite the move this weekend, Alex. I know you're seeing those Lambos in your head already.
Oh my gosh. I mean, to wake up this morning, StormX was almost 10 cents. It hit in 0.099. Yeah, so my prediction is not so crazy anymore, folks, of 25 cents. And I know that I know that Simon, actually, we were going back and forth the other day. He has some stuff he wants to share in tomorrow's episode. So I'm really excited to hear it.
Yeah, remember StormX just had that recent funding round. So it'll be really exciting to see what he has to say about that. But moving into the big boards, the first thing I want to bring up is actually a piece of news that we received on Friday, and that has to do with the jobs report in March. The analysts had estimated it at 675,000, but we overshot that and really beat expectations when it came to jobs being created in the economy in the month of March. And we see that really going into the stock market today. And I think we've had a really nice bullish start to the week as a bounce off of that jobs report. You can see in the S&P, Dow Jones, and the NASDAQ, we're all up over at least 1%. So very nice bullish move to start the week. And, naturally, I think that's going to bleed into Bitcoin and other risk on assets. When people are making money, they want to try other, exploratory things and put their money to work. And so I was talking earlier this morning about how we have this sort of ascending triangle here, and we were rejected right at the top of that resistance level, right at 60K over the weekend. And we've fallen down ever since. Now, with that bullish jobs report and with the bullish momentum being really strong in the stock market, I'm getting a little bit more bullish on Bitcoin, like a lot more. I was thinking that, we may come down and touch resistance at this upward sloping trend line of the ascending triangle. Because you notice we went all the way up here. We topped on a TD sequential 9. That's a sell 9, went all the way down, bounced off support. We didn't quite reach a TD sell 9 this time around. We only reached an 8, and the correction actually happened on the candle, which would have been the 9. So we still had that bearish momentum regardless. And so really it just depends on these two key levels right here. I would be a little bit concerned with Bitcoin if we broke below this upward sloping trend line, but I'm much more optimistic when it comes to a potential of a breakout this week somewhere above the 60K level, because we've really been pushing this level very hard. And I think it's only really a matter of time if we stay in this kind of bullish overall market condition that we will eventually break this level. Now, going over to some of the other time frames, I want to look at the weekly real quick, because we're forming a very nice like bull flag pattern, and we're continuing to push upward onto this 62K level. So if we can do that and get a firm break this week or the next, that break to 70 and possibly 75K by the end of April that we've been talking about might be a little bit more possible. But I don't think that will happen if we break below that downward sloping trend line and negate the ascending triangle. The ascending triangle is really key to the whole technical setup here. And Monty, you had some really interesting Glassnode data as well that kind of backs up the fundamentals, aside from just the technicals on Bitcoin. Should I pull that up for you?
Yeah, go ahead. And yeah, I think that is, you nailed the technicals there. I think that the technicals are bullish. And I mean, it feels like there's been so much weight lifted off the market recently. Kind of feels like a fresh reset with the options expiring last Friday. And now, like you said, CJ, the jobs report looks strong. The legacy markets are performing very well. And we have fundamental data like this that is indicating that we may be entering the beginning of a very bullish market cycle. So what we're looking at here is some data from Glassnode, and this is the miners' net position change. So as you can see, during all of so far in 2021, miners have been selling their Bitcoin, and that's common following a halving event, which we had in 2020, and following a large increase in price like we saw at the end of 2020. So we saw all these miners sort of capitulating and taking profits, and you can see their net positions were significantly in the red. But as of just this weekend, or just a few 5 days ago, we've actually flipped to the positive, meaning that miners have begun accumulating Bitcoin and holding it. So when we see this, this is typically indicative of us entering a new market cycle and is a very bullish signal. So this, in combination with all the technicals that CJ just mentioned, for me is indicative that we are just flirting with a big boom to the upside. 60K is acting as strong resistance, but I think when you look at this chart and you take into consideration these fundamental on-chain metrics, and you combine them with sort of the technicals that CJ was talking about and that ascending triangle, it seems like the timing is lining up pretty nicely for a really strong breakout to the upside. Now, really the $1 million question here is going to be kind of how far we break to the upside. Because CJ, I noticed on your TradingView chart with those Bollinger Bands, when we break above that top Bollinger Band on the daily chart, we tend to see more parabolic price action. That's when we really start to get some movements when we break above that band. And it looks like we found some support in the middle band and are set to retest that second band. So this breakout could come very soon, maybe even this week or this weekend. So Bitcoin is definitely one to watch right now. There's many good reasons to be bullish, and the technicals look very strong.
Yeah, Monty, you bring a really good point up, talking about kind of the Keltner channels, and the Bollinger Bands is really at these exact same levels. But we see that support from that middle band after we get a flush break with that green engulfing candle right there. And we're seeing something kind of very similar after being rejected off the top. So I think if we get that break above the top band, yeah, there could be some interesting price action. I think you make a lot of good points bringing that up.
Well, for as far as 75K, are you guys looking for that by the end of the month, or do you think it could happen sooner, maybe, or end of next week or something like that? Or is it really just dependent on breaking through that 60K, what seems to be like a psychological floor or ceiling?
I think 75K is definitely a realistic expectation for the end of the month. I think what what is a likely scenario is we hit it sooner than the end of the month, but we see some kind of cooling off following hitting 75K. When we kind of run up very quickly, we tend to get at least a brief period of consolidation. I think that when we hit 75K, just because of kind of all that has changed technically in the market, we're seeing miners accumulating rather than capitulating. Options are expiring. Options at April end at 75K. I think there's a lot of good reason to believe that we will hit 75K at the end of this month. But I think that just looking at the chart and kind of taking all other aspects into consideration, like the jobs report that CJ mentioned and the performance of the legacy markets, it seems to me that like 75K is going to come sooner than the end of the month. But that being said, I think there would be a good amount of profit taking there. And I think that would be a level where we see this chart, the miner net position that Nick tweeted out, will actually kind of start to flip back to the red. When miners start to sell, I think that may happen around 75K. But yeah, I just think that this is kind of the range we'll be trading in for the rest of the month, kind of between maybe 68 and 75. So the sooner we get there, the better, in my opinion. But I think that we won't be too much above 75K by the end of the month.
Okay. The 75K is approximately 50% of what I see as the average price prediction being thrown around for the end of the bull run, which sits around 150, $1,000. So we still have a lot more distance to cover to get there. And we have about, I guess, call it 9 months, 8-9 months until that, end of cycle prediction comes as well. Interesting thing on the jobs report. There was a lot of furloughs and layoffs that happened during COVID. I'm suspecting that a lot of that increase is the fact that we have vaccines coming out. We have vaccinations actually being done, a large swath of the population to point. But to me, it feels like that's just filling back up all those layoffs and furloughs that happened during the course of 2020. You guys believe the same thing?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. It's going to be interesting to see, right? Like you said, there's so much changing in kind of the macro economy in these next few months. I mean, everyone here in Illinois is pretty much getting their vaccines now. They're anticipating pretty much everyone will be vaccinated by the end of May. So the economy can look completely different in just a month from now. And who knows what that will do for Bitcoin. The way I see it, though, is just this is kind of another instance of just tremendous pressure being alleviated from the markets. I think that the jobs report is just the first of many metrics that we're going to see that are much more bullish now that the economy is kind of opening back up and people are going out and spending money, eating at restaurants, that sort of thing.
Well, here's my next thing though to that is, one of my personal reasons why I think there was such a great, some really great moments in crypto markets over 2020, such as DeFi, a lot of lockups and flooding into DeFi, the end of August. Going into the fall. And then, of course, the price run up in Bitcoin itself is because there was more of a captive audience, right? So for 12 months, we've had people who were told to stay home, been behind the computer, and a lot more people learned about cryptocurrency than I think they normally would have over the course of the last year. So now we have vaccines rolling in. People are, some people may start to be going back to offices or start to be, going back to work and have less time. But at the same time, they'll also be making money where maybe they lost that income and they couldn't invest in crypto. So do you think that, in your opinions, the people having more money or beginning to get a steady income again will help the cryptocurrency market? Or do you think that people going back to these jobs and working more will take their eyeballs off the markets?
It could be both, but I think that we are more likely to see both an expansion period in the traditional markets, legacy markets, as well as the cryptocurrency markets. One thing that Tom Lee has said is just that. He kind of has been comparing this period to a post-war expansion period in the US where we saw unprecedented levels of stimulus and growth after some of those expansion periods. So the fact that he thinks that is pretty interesting, and I like that analysis. We'll have to see how it plays out, but due to that, I'm pretty optimistic. I'm not gonna take the side of Dr. Doom.
I like, that's a great analogy, actually, from him, post-war expansion, because it's almost like we just went through a war, right, and battling this coronavirus, but it's exactly what he's saying is what happened after World War I, what happened after World War II. So it does feel kind of similar. What about you, Monty?
Yeah, I think 2020 just completely shifted the paradigm in so many ways that even though people are going to be spending less time looking at their screens, maybe, I think the effect is kind of already set in. We saw all these DeFi projects emerge. We saw NFTs emerge. So much building happened on the Ethereum blockchain. And I think a large part of that was because of the kind of social distancing precautions that were put into place and the lack of face-to-face interaction. People were forced to go digital and innovate in digital ways. And I think that obviously played a massive role in the adoption and the huge price spike we saw in all these crypto assets. And I think that that's not going to change. I think people are going to continue to develop projects that kind of eliminate the need for face-to-face interaction. I mean, we've seen companies like Zoom just completely boom in value. And I think that's just one instance of kind of how the world has really changed because of 2020. And I think the change is permanent. I don't think things are going to necessarily go back to normal. I think so many things that kind of happened in 2020 just as a result of quarantine and social distancing are just kind of the new status quo. And I don't think that's going anywhere.
We don't have to sell our green screens anytime soon.
I have a question for Alex, because I wasn't around back then in 2000.
Oh, I think I'm talking about the post-war expansion.
Oh, Monty. But we have these certain periods in US history, like the 20s, like the late 90s leading up into the tech bubble, where trading and investing becomes an American pastime. And we see that intensity really flow into retail capital. And, the common person really gets involved with the stock market. I see it in my friends. I see it with people getting interested in crypto who, normally would not. What do you think that means? Do you think that's kind of sustainable? And how would you gauge the intensity when comparing that to something like 2000?
Yeah, I think it's very cyclical. I don't think it's sustainable at all. And what we've seen in the past is people rush into, right, it's a very vibrant market. Let's take the altcoin market right now. It's a very vibrant market. Everybody feels like they just have to put their finger down on a ticker and whatever they'll pick is going to go up. I just spent the week down here in Puerto Rico with Rob and talking to people who weren't in crypto a month ago, who are now into crypto. But when this market subsides, I think so does that interest, right? Nobody likes to lose money. And so the wind will be taken out of their sails and it'll go back into its ebb and flow period until the next cycle starts again.
Yeah,
a lot of people get wiped out. You remember, you got to remember the novices. Nobody likes to paint the top, but most novices do. And unfortunately, they tend to lose a lot of money more often than not. And so there's a lot of hurt and despair until the next cycle comes along. Sorry to cut you off, Monty.
Yeah, no, I think I was just going to draw on that comparison to 2017. I think we talk a lot about how things have changed since then, and that's very true with the presence of institutions in Wales. But I think that to a lesser extent in this market cycle, we'll see that sort of disinterest happen when the market does kind of start to turn around a little bit. But yeah, this does feel a bit more sustained just because of it's just so much broader and there's so many avenues of exposure. You don't need to just directly invest in Ethereum or Bitcoin. There are other projects that serve other needs. And I think as a result, it's just appealing to a much broader community. But yeah, I think that the interest that we're seeing right now, and I agree with CJ, I've seen it with all my friends and family, and people that had no interest in crypto are now very interested. that will definitely dwindle when the price action slows down. But I mean, for the meantime, I'm welcoming them all aboard.
Monty, my favorite saying is nobody likes Bitcoin at 4,000. Everybody loves it at 40,000. That's just the psychology of it. Waiting for this to happen since 2017, people were like, yeah, they don't want to learn about it. They don't even want to hear about it. But then when all of a sudden it's, up there 40, 50, 60,000, everybody wants in.
Too true.
All right. Very cool, folks, gents. Happy positive Monday with the Bitcoin. That chart is definitely telling on the mining accumulation. I was pretty shocked. I hadn't looked at that chart in quite some time. I was actually pretty shocked to see how deep that red selling went in January when we hit that price. And that just goes to show what you guys were just talking about. Miners have been waiting since 2017 too. And so they took their mark and they need cash to fund their businesses. So all good. Don't forget, tomorrow we got Simon, founder and CEO of Stormex coming on. They just went through a funding round, as Monty had mentioned, and CJ, and they got a few things he wants to share. We got Pat Ackerman joining for the first time with Stormex. You guys have heard about him with VGX. Well, now it's STMX. So let's see how that transpires. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the like button. And then also don't forget, go over to tradethechain.com and marketrebellion.com/crypto and check those out as well. We will see you again tomorrow, folks, and thanks for tuning in.
Thank you.